Perfect. All right. Let's start with some quick introductions from our side and then get into the presentation. So we have time for everyone to ask questions at the end. I'll start with me. Thanks everyone who's joined this webinar here today, especially with it being a Friday and all. My name is Ashkan Iskandari. I'm the person who probably sent you the invite a few days back or a few weeks back, depending on when you said you'd like to be a part of this. I'm the Director of Client Solutions here at Blue Label Labs. I work very closely with various companies, businesses, organizations that are looking to solve different problems on their end through digital products. So it's my job to sync up with them, understand what it is they're looking to achieve, how they want to achieve it, and then from there I would sync up with various members of our design team and our engineering team. And from there we really just get to work and start putting it all together. I live here in New York City, grew up in California, moved here about 4 years ago, and I've been working in the tech space for a little while now. And we've been really looking forward to this this webinar here because of our work with Jocks. And you know, they've really just been making waves in terms of how they're really, for lack of a better word, and as dramatic as it may sound, revolutionizing the in-home fitness industry. So that's me in a nutshell. Let me go ahead and pass it over to Zach.
Hey everybody, Zach Drew here, partner VP of Client Solutions, coming to you from a parent's place in Maine, getting some outdoor time. And my role here at the company is to lead sales and marketing and help clients with the strategic things that surround the design and development of a product. So things like strategy around sales and marketing, partnerships, fundraising, hiring, and the like. And I'm excited to walk you through what we're seeing in the fitness space from an innovation and transformation perspective. Danny?
Exactly. Hey everybody, Danny Deserto. I'm also a partner and VP of product here, and I oversee the product design and product management teams. I really work with clients of setting their product vision, product strategy, all the way through branding, UI, UX, and launch. So yeah, I'm also excited to be here and talk about the great work we've done with Jocks and talk about the innovation in the space.
And before we dive in, for everyone joining in, any questions, anything that you'd like to ask, just feel free to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom. And if you're experiencing any issues, just feel free to pop something into the chat and we'll look right into it. Thank you. Zach?
Perfect. So I just wanted to give you guys a quick overview of what we are about, and then we'll dive into the innovation and fitness. So we are a digital product agency. So we help with strategic consulting, designing, and of course, developing digital products, web, mobile, TV, different screen formats. And that is what we do. We're based here in New York, and we've built over 300 products now for about the last 10 years, offices in San Francisco and Seattle as well. That's a bit about us. In terms of some things we've done relevant to this particular presentation, Jocks, you've heard a few times, interesting startup that's now raised over $10 million and is doing really well. And then of course, a handful of other startups and early stage ventures. Some of them are listed here. And no stranger to larger enterprise work as well for names like Bloomberg, iHeartMedia, Microsoft, and Google, and a number of different implementations for those folks. When it comes to the type of work we do, I've mentioned all the different device types. There's a multitude of them. Most of them use the same sort of coding language and principles, so it doesn't really matter what device type you're building for, we're capable of it. And then on the technology front, a slew of different types of tech that we can build with. So when it comes to what it is or what you should be looking for in any shop, I think is the better way to think about this. I mean, these are the things that differentiate us, but at the end of the day, the way to think about what we're building is all about the business-minded approach, the idea of building an MVP first and foremost, and ensuring that we're starting with something minimal but viable, making sure we're driven by user testing and the strategy around that. Of course, the idea of making sure you've got relevant experience, right? If you don't want somebody that's doing this for the first time, that's a recipe for disaster. So having high level of experience is important. And of course, other social proof, whether that be reviews, referrals, and the like, super important. And having a team you can trust is important, along with a battle-tested process, and meaning that we've done this before and we know how to do it. And then there's the idea of course, delivering on a timeline and a budget that works. Those are the ways to think about what makes a good partner for a digital product. But let's dive into it. The idea of what a ridiculously brief history of fitness, and we'll breeze through this idea. But of course, we all started as hunter-gatherers, and really no luxury for the idea of fitness. Your fitness came from being able to hunt your food and feeding the family. And so from there, of course, we moved into an agrarian society. We all heard about Mesopotamia in our 6th grade world history class. And the idea is that we need to be able to feed ourselves outside of hunting and gathering. And so the agrarian lifestyle allowed for that. Fast forward a bit, we can't talk about fitness without talking about the Greeks and the Olympics, and clearly the idea of leading the pack in terms of believing in fitness as a part of the world and the life you need to live. Fast forward, Industrial Revolution, the idea of having more means and more time to work on fitness because you've got the ability and the means to do it is important. The idea is that during this time, clearly lots of interesting fitness innovations came around, mainly some crazy contraptions. Hold on one second. The idea is creating a bunch of crazy contraptions that led to fitness, tried to attack this problem through the means of actually doing less work if you could. And so these devices were created to do that. Plenty of crazy contraptions came around this time of Victorian England. The fast forward a couple hundred years to the 1980s, and of course we have a boom in fitness then. Everybody from our friends Richard Simmons and Jane Fonda here, she looks about the same as she did 40 years ago. Probably the leg warmers helped that. And you've got Tony Robbins and his Gazelle. He's got a new book out in case you're interested in that. And then of course we've got the idea of we've got Danny's mom here over on the right. Next, fast forward another 10 years, you got Bowflex. I remember these commercials when I was growing up. They were everywhere and always. The idea of direct-to-consumer fitness started with Bowflex. Fast forward again, where are we today? I think we're all probably pretty sick of hearing about Peloton as an idea. It's clearly a leader for a variety of reasons, but not the only game in town. So we'll talk a bit more about some other players in this space shortly. Growth and trends. So let's talk about where fitness is now and where it's headed. The idea of fitness and the spend associated with it, and clearly increasing, especially in the last few years. The idea of the wellness market growing relatively quickly, especially when it comes to professional wellness services, tech-enabled services. There's clear growth in the industry, and it's only going to continue. When we think about what this means for fitness and the evolution of it, you've got the three merging of three worlds. You've got wellness generally, the idea of out of gym or out of studio workouts and experiences, and then the subscription commerce. They're clearly merging. Consumers are generally expecting some version of all three of them right now. And you'll see that in things like Peloton, right? Clearly Peloton's right in the middle. You've got other players like Mirror or Tonal doing something very similar and finding that middle ground, as well as Jack's Jocks, which we'll talk about in detail in a bit. The idea of looking at where is search interest changing, how is it trending recently, really in 2020, The idea here is that you've got things that are growing in interest and popularity, and there are plenty of things that are not growing. Spinning, I think you could argue, with the advent of Peloton and what it's done in the market, has led to a clear increase in people searching for spinning as a technique or a way to stay fit. When it comes to things that have seen some negative returns, or where people are not searching anymore that they might have before, at the bottom of the list, you've got some essentially things that are really relatively non-technical. Right at the very bottom, we probably all heard of Zumba, CrossFit, and TRX. By default or by design, not particularly tech-enabled ways of exercising or ways of getting fit, and those have seen a clear decrease or a decline in their people's interest in them over the course of the year. So what does that mean for fitness, and where is the money going? Clearly, fitness, as of this article was published just about a year ago, off by a day. The idea is that overnight there was the need for something virtual, something at home in the fitness world due to the pandemic. And so what has the $100 billion industry done from there? Well, we can see that there's clearly been a flow of money in a massive way into health tech generally from the venture world. So clearly plenty of new entrants coming into this space with no shortage of capital to try to win some market share over some of the established players or the folks that are producing in-gym equipment. So that's a quick overview of sort of where we're at from an industry perspective, from the beginning of time now to today. But what I would do is turn it over to Danny to talk a little bit about how do you compete in this space? What is the way to think about the creation of a digital product in fitness that makes any sense in today's world?
Thanks. So we'll start with the addressable market. And I think, as you can see from the previous slides, that there's a large addressable market, and that's always great. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to build for everybody. And I think that's really something, especially as we start. We like to say, I'd rather have 100 people that love the initial product, because we can actually scale off of that. And then we have some brand champions, and it really helps us determine that we're serving our users' needs rather than trying to build for everybody. We really do try to find that value hypothesis. So, and that kind of helps us start looking into like product market fit, really. But to kind of hit that, we really need to build for our early adopters. And early adopters, we kind of do a lot of qualitative product discovery, especially here at Blue Label. And that's really talking to our users, doing interviews, customer research, and observing and just asking them, what they're looking for and what they need, and how do we address that. Through that, we usually end up doing some journey mapping, and that really allows us to build the product in such a way that is useful early on, but not trying to do too many things. So as you can see kind of on the slide here, we don't want to start by just building the best set of wheels to get to the car, right? It's a nice set of wheels isn't going to get you moving forward. We want to build you a skateboard, then a scooter, and then a bike, then a motorcycle, and then a nice luxury car. So it's really understanding that we really want to build for those early adopters and not try to build too many features early on. And our most successful companies and people that we work with really do follow this, and we really push everybody into this process and mindset. So next, and this has been around for a while, and it's just this idea of an MVP product, a minimum viable product. Now, I do feel like this has changed in the past few years. What we've seen is the market demands and what people actually demand out of a product are much higher than they were, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago at this point. So some people like to say minimal lovable product now. So that's kind of another kind of a flavor on this. But once again, we really want to balance this need of desirable, usable, and functional. Once we kind of hit all that, we're then serving the needs of our customers in a way that delights them, and that's usually how we start off on the right foot of building something that's going to be adopted by the market in an aggressive way. So we're really all about how do we have this kind of feedback loop, and a lot of this, especially in Jack-Jocks and stuff we're going to be discussing a little bit later, really building, measuring, and learning. And that happens all the way from the product vision stage, the high level goal of the product, into product strategy, which is more about the high level plan, and even through our product design process. We're constantly building prototypes, doing user testing, getting feedback, iterating, and learning from that, pivoting, persevering from that, and then building again. And we also use a agile methodology to follow these principles all the way through development and beyond to launch. So we like to show this slide to a lot of our clients because there is a lot of hidden cost of digital product development. And we do things, so like this first one, for example, of building a product for the wrong early adopters. This happens a lot of times when you don't validate your early assumptions or don't validate this hypothesis early on. So we actually do something called a design sprint. It's a 5-day workshop that allows us to iterate on an idea and actually build a prototype and get validation by the end of the week. So what this serves is, we can actually test with real users, make sure we're building the right thing within a very short amount of time, and not wait until 6 months after and potentially a lot of money. And we didn't build it for the right audience, and we didn't get traction, and we've already, obviously wasted a lot of our money or our investors' money at that point. Building a foundation product from a foundation that doesn't scale. Here we can see that the cost is whatever you paid for the product to be built, it might have to be thrown away later. Now, this is kind of a mixed bag here a little bit. I think we've heard, if you listen to the founder of Airbnb, he actually, it's kind of a balance of doing things that don't scale sometimes, but some of the actually foundational elements of your product need to be scalable. So I think it's really about how to balance those two things. And then some of the last ones here, assuming the product is complete at launch and won't evolve. This is something we find in a lot of our early entrepreneurs. They feel like the product they have to build and release into the market needs to be perfect. No product is complete. You should be very unsure about the product, right? Actually, when it's releasing, if you're super sure about what you're releasing, then you've kind of waited way too long. So we really want to launch early, get feedback from the market, and get those 100 people, once again, that 100 or 1,000 people that really love what you're building before we try to build more features. And then the last one is something that Blue Label is really just we entrench ourselves in, which is substantial and iterative user testing. As I kind of mentioned, it happens all the way through our strategy, product strategy, even product vision. Who are we talking to? Who are our competitors? Just doing those qualitative and quantitative research, understanding our customers, and building those personas. And once we kind of build those personas, we match that with a nice product vision. We have a product vision as our North Star. How do we keep building to what we believe in and what the product should be, and actually understanding our customer and who our early adopter is, once again, and framing that in such a way that we can build for them in the best possible way.
So a quick look at sort of what we call the old guard here and what they're doing in the fitness space, and then we'll talk a bit about the new entrants and why they're different and why their offerings are compelling. We've got the Nordictrak, right? launched in 1970. What has Nordictrak done since then with their new product? The idea of this mirror-based fitness equipment is surely trendy. There's a handful of folks doing it today, but Nordictrak has clearly moved from their ski machine to something far more tech-enabled, still having offline elements, but the idea of delivering an experience that can happen at the gym or at home. These particular devices on the far right are both at home and at gyms, and clearly something that's more tech-enabled than what they were doing 50 years ago. Taking a look at Bowflex, I think the most interesting thing here is their photographer is exactly the same as it was 40 years ago. But Bowflex has a slew of new machines that are clearly tech-enabled, touchscreens, different integrations, both on the treadmill front, climbers, a few other types of devices, but all of them clearly have some tech enablement in a way that is meeting the needs of the current consumer. Looking at Precor, they had their rowing machine back in the day, their first device, and today Precor is mainly delivering equipment to gyms, but with a connected aspect. Today, their products have the ability for gym members, anyone coming to the gym, to create an account with Precor, to be able to link to that particular machine, track their exercise, track their routines, and be able to come back, restore where they were, and continue their progress. This particular at-gym implementation is the clear example of it's not just at-home fitness equipment that is evolving in this space. There's clearly the in-gym experience that is equally as important today as it was before. What's the old guard? I mean, so who are the upstarts? What are the new entrants, and what are they doing in the space? I'm sure we're all familiar with Apple Fitness and what they've introduced recently. I think the thing about Apple to remember is they're never really the first to market. They're always a fast follower. And I think it is something to be relatively concerned about when Apple moves into the fitness space or any space. It means that they think there's a real business here, and clearly something that can make them some money. So Fitness Plus is something that is clearly cross-platform. You can integrate your watch, your phone, your TV, and it is subscription-based, which you'll hear about a bunch as we continue this conversation. Subscriptions are the gift that keep on giving, and they are something that both the Apple and Google worlds and our overlords are clearly rewarding in the market by essentially discounting the cut that they'll take of your revenue from the App Store if subscriptions are a part of how users are paying for their use of your platform. So both doubling down on subscriptions themselves, but also helping the market to understand that building subscription-based businesses is a good thing. Apple is doubled down on that front. Moving to an interesting implementation of fitness through Gatorade and their Gatorade Sweat Patch. Clearly app connected, the idea of being able to read biometrics from an individual, from a wearer of the patch, and getting some results immediately to understand your performance. Clearly this is for a professional athlete, somebody who very much cares about this deep level of data, but the idea of measurement and personalization, then of course to sell them more Gatorade, sell them more of the product that is their core. How do you know if you're well hydrated? How do you know if you've got electrolyte levels where they need to be to perform optimally? The idea of tech enabling that is helping Gatorade to sell more of their core product. Moving to Center, this Chris Hemsworth's new venture here is an interesting example of bringing together the ideas of wellness, of good eating, and of fitness into one place that is subscription-based and delivering you content and a guide to how to live better in a way that's not just about exercising better. And I think we're going to see more and more of this from everyone. And I think you'll see even Apple getting into this game of thinking about wellness more holistically than just fitness. Moving to Mirror. Mirror's one of those Peloton-like new ventures that has raised a ton of money. Clearly, also in this mirror concept that is clearly trendy and gaining traction in the market. But the idea of having an at-home example of personalized fitness, personalized coaching, that also looks great in your home. And that idea is not going to be going away anytime soon. And you see that mimicked here with this last example of Tonal. And Tonal, a bit more of an upstart. There, you don't have quite the cash reserves of a Peloton or a Mirror, but definitely up and coming and raised some huge money recently. Also a video-based type of implementation here, but also integrating hardware and the fitness equipment directly into the device. That idea not going away anytime soon. So those are some of the new players. I guess the last one I'll point to here is Forte. Forte is not an at-home fitness company by design. It's actually one that is providing classes and the streaming of classes to gyms across the country, meaning you can look and watch in on a yoga class, a HIIT class from some trainer that might be halfway across the world, but be able to watch that in your own home gym on a big screen. And so this idea of bringing these creators, these influencers in fitness to the gym setting, not going away either. And of course, tech enabled from the start. Those are some of the new entrants in the space. I'll turn it over to Danny here to speak to JacksJox, our work with them, and some examples of what they're doing and why the principles that we've been putting forth through the JacksJox work are permeating this space.
Thanks, Zach. So, like some of the other products we're seeing, JacksJox's vision is really a balance of strength training, cardio, effort, and recovery. They really have been focusing on this kind of recommendation engine. They want to deliver a really supportive atmosphere for its users, and a seamless suggestion, kind of going into this idea of being coached and being balanced with wellness, and more hyper personalized for the user and less about the competitive nature that you see maybe in something like Peloton. They have a full suite, or they're building a full suite of applications. So maybe unlike some of the other products we've shown you, we have iOS, Android, web, Apple Watch. We're building Apple TV, and obviously they're the JacksJox Studio, which is an all-in-one home fitness device that we'll talk a little bit more later. So we kind of start with JacksJox 1.0, and this was out in the market. As you can see, a little bit dated design here, because it's from a while back. We took this and we went through our normal process of, establishing a product, establishing what their new product vision is, especially with some of their holistic fitness and wellness kind of view. As you can see, they have this proprietary technology called Fitness IQ. Fitness IQ, they work with the American College of Sports and Medicine to establish some attributes that would determine how well you're doing from a fitness perspective. And it's things like consistency, number of times you work out over the course of a week, average heart rate, average power over the course of a workout, how fast, how strong and fast you're working with your kettlebell or dumbbell or other devices. So we really started with this 1.0 and did a lot more user testing, really talked about what people want, and they started really pushing into on-demand and live classes. So we'll talk about that in the next few slides.
Yeah, I mean, to jump into this concept of user testing and its importance, I always like to point to this famous misattributed quote from Henry Ford. Nobody has any proof that he actually said this, but the idea that if he asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. I think the interesting way to think about this is that it's not that that's a bad question. It's perhaps that it's not asked quite appropriately. I think the idea of user testing is about asking the right question to the right people. And if Henry Ford had asked folks what they might have wanted out of their horses, you perhaps would have heard things like, "Hey, I wish I didn't have to feed it all the time," or I wish I could get this thing to go 100 miles at one time, or I wish I could haul a heavier load with my two horses. Well, if you'd ask those questions, you might have understood that, hey, there are some things that could be done differently that people really do want, and that a horse really is not going to actually solve the problem for. Hence the benefit of user testing and asking the right questions to the right people.
So here we're showing you the JackShock Studio. The JackShock Studio is kind of like some of the other devices what we've seen previously, an all-in-one home gym, but with kind of a stronger focus. Obviously, you see the dumbbells, the kettlebell on strength training. That doesn't mean that's all they're doing. They're also you can see a foam roller there, which is really meant for recovery, and you have the JackShock push-up, which allows some body weight exercises. So it's really just from an outside view, it's really giving you a lot of cool devices that are kind of really thoughtfully designed and sophisticated technology, and we'll kind of go into that in the next few slides. We can talk about just we've had a lot of success early on, or we've helped them have a lot of success early on. I think it's really attributed to our processes of, they've shown this now to obviously a bunch of people. They're starting to roll out with some early users, and they raised another round of 10 million, kind of with their AI-enabled workout systems, recommendation engines for their classes, and they're really just focused on hyper-personalization. So, and going into personalization, really does play into, like, hyper-personalization really does play into gamification, which we're going to talk about next. But once again, looking at like these static and dynamic user attributes, obviously understanding their age, weight, and height is important, and especially for a fitness device. But we really wanted to go a little bit deeper in understanding people's fitness goals, their fitness levels, and then creating a profile for them so that we can adjust their programs or adjust their workouts for them in a more personalized way. So here you can kind of see a few of the screens and the ability to kind of create profiles for people in your house or at gyms on the screen here. So if you go to the next slide. And once again, that does really play into gamification. So, and we kind of have the pillars of of our gamification is understanding the behavioral frameworks, emotions, motivations, mindsets and behaviors, and we kind of built these personas early on from talking to users, and then use that to to build a very clear and clean. People wanted a very clean system. They really just want to understand all of their data and how it was trending, but also reward them for making progress and seeing kind of the ups and downs. And we took the fitness IQ that was in JackShock 1.0, we kind of redesigned it so people can kind of keep track of how well they're performing week by week here. And some of the other things on gamification, we kind of wanted to know what their likes and dislikes were, and also understand their personality traits. So like I said, once again, going back to, we just built personas for a lot of different people that we thought were going to be our early adopters. And we've had a lot of good feedback by doing that. The next thing here is one of the big pillars of JackShock is real-time tracking and analytics. They have a heart rate monitor that will allow you to obviously, track your current heart rate while you're working out, and determine your calories. The devices can track your movements, and we're pairing that with some motion capture. So they're going to kind of do more of an AI enabled to see how you're working out, and the kind of and what's the best way to do some of these exercises. So working with kettlebells is a little bit difficult than just riding on a bike. So which we learned early on, and teaching people skills and how to do certain exercises was really important. And the next stage of that is not only just teaching them how to do it, but correcting them when they're wrong, and showing them the optimal way of doing things based off of their own body movements. So, and then here also on these screens, you can kind of see, we're showing you a lot of data, right? You get to see your reps, your sets, your total volume. Total volume is obviously every time you lift a 20-pound weight, we add 20 pounds to your total volume. This is something that's very important in CrossFit, and just understanding actually how much weight you lifted for that workout or across the week. Average power is how hard you're working out or how hard you're swinging it, the kettlebell. So, and a combination of all these things allow you to get a good picture of your workout. So we're kind of keeping track of all these items here. And the last thing, obviously, on-demand classes have been popular for a while, and now we're moving into live classes. The live classes at the moment will be something called Jack Shocks 360. They're total body workouts, because that's what they really are pushing for, is to have this, once again, this holistic fitness, strength training, cardio, and also recovery. And the next thing is, how do we help people set goals? And how can we have the trainers interact with our members and users in these live classes? And so we're actually starting to look at how do we build out something for the trainers to motivate people in the classes. Here we can kind of see, we have a class schedule. So, every day there's new classes, these 45-minute classes. And even so, for the on-demand classes or live classes, they're really getting a good glimpse of their data. So nothing really changes there. And future iterations, we're going to start looking at how do we actually live stream you and your friends. And also you can kind of see some of their data as they're working out, and we're trying to duplicate that studio experience with friends and making it a little bit more social. So I think that's all of the parts of the Jack Shocks app. And Zach and Ash, I don't know if you had anything else to add, but
I was going to just sort of mention the concept of gamification. I think is just critical here, because a lot of apps, and when I say a lot, I mean pretty much every single app out there today, wants to find various ways to gamify and provide a little bit of a different experience to the user. I mean, an example that comes up that's a little bit out there is LinkedIn. They try to gamify the whole approach to completing your profile, right? And there's apps that are even more obscure in terms of where it would make sense to apply gamification. But in this sector, it's not only something that fits for obvious reasons, but it's something that can be doubled down upon, and it's not tacky. It's not forcing something. It's not trying to fit a circle into a square, that type of thing. It actually provides a little bit of a different approach to the products that are interacting with the app. And we've seen different variations of it, right? Peloton, Jack Shocks, they're creating this content that works with it, and it does phenomenally well. In Peloton's case, they've got the leaderboards, which people have almost made go viral to an extent. We talked about Center, which is that Chris Hemsworth or Thor, if you will, app, which they rely on their network of personal trainers. And then there's quite a few other apps out there that just sort of accompany the accessories and other in-home fitness equipment types of products that don't necessarily create their own content, but they certainly work well alongside the hardware themselves. So just sort of a few tiny tidbits that I thought were, to me, interesting and certainly something that's food for thought as we proceed to the rest of this webinar here. And we're going to have questions and answers here in a few moments. And we're running right on 2:45 here. Let me just sort of actually open it up for any Q&A right now, because I do want to be mindful of everyone's time. Was there anyone